Hello guys, welcome back to XML Gaming, and we're going to be watching Operation Kayla Mueller, the Baghdadi raid. So this is the raid on Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi that ended up taking the leader of ISIS out. So we're going to watch it and just see what's what, I guess. Hello as well again, as always, to all the new subscribers. I really appreciate it. We are getting closer and closer to that 500 mark, so let's keep it up, let's keep it going.
26 knots down the Eagle. 106 interval is a rhino.
On the 9th of February 2019, the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces commenced their offensive to clear the Baku's pocket, the last remaining stronghold held by IS in Iraq and Syria. For 7 weeks, the SDF, with support from coalition aircraft, fought hard to dislodge the enemy from their position, and eventually on the 23rd of March 2019, the yellow flag of the SDF was raised over Baku's, marking the end of IS's 5-year caliphate. However, whilst IS's physical territory had been completely eradicated, its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, still remained unaccounted for. Baghdadi had been the focus of an international manhunt since 2014, when he made his first public appearance as IS's leader. Since then, numerous leads on his whereabouts materialised, but each one seemed to go nowhere until 2018, when Turkish, US and Iraqi forces captured 5 members of Baghdadi's inner circle, who provided intelligence that led to them in the summer of 2019, highlighting the province of Idlib in northwestern Syria as a likely area Baghdadi was hiding in. At the same time, another breakthrough was achieved when Baghdadi's security advisor, responsible for locating and securing his safe houses, covertly established communication with the Syrian Democratic Forces. General Maslam Abdi, the commander of the SDF, revealed, "The informant's relatives were subjected to harsh treatment by ISIS, and he no longer believed in the future of the group. He wanted to take revenge on ISIS and on al-Baghdadi himself." After gaining the trust of the Kurds, the informant in July 2019 pinpointed a compound outside of the town of Barisha, located in the northwest of Syria, which Baghdadi had recently moved into. Additionally, he shared details on the layout of the building, tunnel networks that ran beneath it, the number of people who lived inside, and other security details regarding the building. Despite this level of detail, for several weeks the Americans were not convinced that the information was legitimate, and asked the informant to prove that Baghdadi was 100% staying in the compound. Consequently, the informant snuck a piece of clothing and a sample of blood out of the building, passed it on to the Kurds, who in turn gave it to the Americans, who made a positive DNA match linking them to Baghdadi. After this, the US placed the compound under aerial surveillance and deployed CIA undercover agents onto the ground in Barisha, whilst the US Central Command, headed by General Kenneth Mackenzie, started preparing for a military operation.
So some people would say, why not just bomb the compound? Again, this comes back to the real sort of emphasis on lowering civilian casualties. They can't just drop a bomb on that compound. They don't know what civilians are in that compound, his wife, his children, for example. You know, maybe back in the day you probably could have got away with that, but the way things are at the moment, especially with the way warfare is nowadays, where minimal casualties, civilian casualties or collateral damage is to be kept absolutely minimum, that can't happen anymore. It's frustrating for troops on the ground, especially if you're in contact, but unfortunately that's the way it is nowadays. I say unfortunately, obviously fortunately for civilians and soldiers who want to do things the right way, it's a good thing. Although sometimes it doesn't feel like it when you're trying to dig in with your eyelids because you've got bullets and RPGs whizzing over your head.
Mackenzie later recalled, "As it became clear that we had gained fleeting and actionable intelligence on its hideout, we developed an execution level plan designed to capture or kill him, and start preparing a special operations team for the mission." Immediately, General Mackenzie and his staff faced several problems, the most notable of which included where the compound was located, which was in a region engulfed in fighting between al-Qaeda-linked militants and Turkish-backed rebels on one side, and the Syrian military, supported by Russian forces, on the other. As such, it was necessary to ensure deconfliction mechanisms were put in place beforehand to reduce the risk of an international incident. This mainly involved notifying Russia and Turkey several hours before the operation that US aircraft would be operating in the area. Meanwhile, near the Kurdish city of Erbil in northern Iraq, a temporary compound designed to replicate the one at Berisha was created to allow the assault force to rehearse and plan for the forthcoming operation.
So this kind of training is massively important for special operations teams. You know, I'm not special forces, never have been special forces, never done the inkling, tiniest, smidgiest bit of special forces training. But I know, for example, the SAS did this for the Iranian embassy siege. They created a mock-up of the embassy and worked their way through it. They also did it for the capture of, was it some Royal Irish by the Paras in Africa? I can't remember where it was exactly. They made mock-ups on the floor and they worked their way through the compounds. So it was very important for special operations units to work at that sort of level.
In total, approximately 70 operators were to execute the mission, the vast majority of which were from the 75th Ranger Regiment, whose objective it was to establish a perimeter around the target, whilst A Squadron and Delta Force were tasked with clearing the compound itself. Airlifting this force to Berisha will be the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, who had assembled a fleet of 8 helicopters to carry out this role. This fleet was made up of CH-47 Chinook and MH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, with several of the Black Hawks being of the direct action penetrator variant, which essentially turns the aircraft into a helicopter gunship, enabling the crew to mount heavy weapons onto its side,
Holy shit.
which for the mission were specifically fitted with 30mm automatic cannons. Providing support to this task force will be a number of assets, including an undisclosed number of F-15 fighter aircraft, most likely from the 335th Fighter Squadron operating out of Jordan, 2 MC-130J Commander 2 tanker aircraft, which were to provide mid-flight air refueling.
Go on, they must have had an AC-130 gunship.
Several MQ-9 Reaper drones deployed from Kuwait,
Spectre, come on.
and 5 US Navy guided missile cruisers and destroyers, which were to be on standby in the Persian Gulf.
That's a hell of a lot.
Training at Erbil for several weeks, the task force was put on the highest state of readiness twice to conduct the operation, but both times they were stood down for reasons that are unknown, although the US military's withdrawal from northern Syria in early October possibly influenced these decisions. Then, sometime in mid-October, the Kurdish informant alerted the Americans to the fact that Baghdadi was preparing to move to a new safe house.
That's it, they've got to hit now when he's there.
This, coupled with ideal weather and lunar data, prompted US Central Command to speed up the preparations, and beginning on the 25th of October 2019, in General Mackenzie's words, with the approval of Defence Secretary Mark Esper and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley, we extensively briefed the President on all aspects of the plan and the risks involved in its execution. Assessing all the available options, US President Donald Trump gave General Mackenzie, the operational commander, the green light to conduct the ground assault, which was given the codename of Operation Kayla Mueller by General Mark Milley, in tribute to the American aid worker who was held hostage by IS from 2013 and was known to have been personally held captive and tortured by Baghdadi himself before she was sadly killed in 2015.
Okay, so I was going to wonder where the name came from for the operation, because usually names for operations, exercises, things like that, I don't know where they get them from. They are ridiculous. But obviously now we know that this operation was named after Kayla Mueller. I'll look into that a little bit later on. Rest in peace.
The next day at 2300 Syrian time on the 26th of October, Trump, accompanied by senior military and government officials, gathered in the White House Situation Room to watch the operation unfold. At the same time, 10,000 kilometers away, at an unknown staging base in either Iraq or Syria, the assault force, which had designated themselves Task Force 814 in reference to Kayla's birthday, loaded up onto the awaiting helicopters and took off for Berisha. Flying for 70 minutes, during which the helicopters were refueled mid-flight by the supporting MC-130s, the task force reached Berisha at midnight on the 26th of October.
And to do that at night is insane.
Upon arrival, the force, while still in the air, came on a small arms fire from 2 locations,
Really?
which were quickly silenced by the Black Hawk helicopters.
Wow.
Meanwhile, in the village of Barisha, Syrian civilians came out of their homes to see what was happening. One civilian, Ahmed Mohammed, recalled, "I opened the door of my house to see what was there. I was shocked to see aircraft no more than 15 meters above the ground." With dust being thrown into the sky, the Chinooks touched down, enabling the Rangers to rush out the cargo bay doors and establish a security perimeter around the target, whilst the operators from Delta, accompanied by an Arabic translator, disembarked, moved forward to, and surrounded the compound. Using a megaphone, the Arabic translator called on for those inside to come out peacefully, leading to a group of non-combatants, including 11 children, rushing out and being checked over for any weapons.
See, again, they took the time to lower that risk of collateral damage, by giving them the opportunity, by letting them know that they were there, and giving them the opportunity to send non-combatants out. Again, for the soldiers themselves, it probably would have been safer just to go straight in, but instead they gave them the opportunity. They let them know they were there. They gave away that sort of element of surprise. So that all comes down to keeping collateral damage down to a minimum.
Weapons and explosives before being moved away from the area. With no sign of Baghdadi, the assault teams pressed on, clearing several tents located outside the compound's perimeter wall, prior to entering the courtyard and driveway that led up to the compound itself. Conscious that the main entrance was potentially booby-trapped, the assault teams decided to breach the building's bottom left corner wall. Storming inside, they came across 5 militants, 4 women, 2 of whom were believed to be Baghdadi's wives, and 1 man, who approached the assault teams wearing suicide vests. After issuing numerous calls for them to surrender in Arabic, all of which were ignored, the Delta operators neutralised all 5. It was at around this stage that a white vehicle, not believed to have been affiliated to the Islamic State, drove up to the perimeter the Rangers had established and was destroyed by the overhead Black Hawk helicopters, after its occupants had shown hostile intent and engaged the US forces.
Well, there you go then.
Meanwhile, back at the compound, the assault teams began clearing the rooms inside, where they found a further 2 men who immediately surrendered and were taken into custody, whilst other Delta operators got eyes on Baghdadi running into a tunnel, carrying 2 children under the age of 12. It was here that Conan, a 5-year-old male Belgian Malinois dog and a veteran of approximately 50 Special Forces operations, was sent into the tunnel to chase after Baghdadi, whilst an explosive ordnance disposal robot was brought forward in reserve. Running down the tunnel, Baghdadi came to a dead end, and not wanting to be captured alive, he detonated his suicide vest, killing himself and the 2 children, collapsing the end of the tunnel, and lightly wounding Conan.
Oh, at least Conan survived.
Shortly after, with the tunnel deemed safe of explosives, several Delta operators went in, recovered Conan, and began the difficult task of finding Baghdadi's remains, and within 15 minutes, a positive DNA match had been made, confirming that it was the leader of the Islamic State. In the White House Situation Room, President Trump and the other officials heard the senior US commander on the ground radio in. 100% confidence, jackpot. We got him. 100% confidence, jackpot. Over. With the mission complete and the objective secured, the Delta operators conducted a search of the compound, collecting anything deemed valuable for intelligence, including laptops, cell phones, USB flash drives, and paperwork, before rendezvousing back outside to load onto the awaiting helicopters to begin the return flight to the staging area, 2 hours after they had arrived.
So that's a long operation.
Taken off just after 03:30 on the morning on the 27th of October 2019,
Boom.
Task Force 814 departed Barisha, with the supporting F-15s and the overhead MQ-9 Reaper drones, firing several cruise and guided missiles at the compound
Yes.
to prevent it from being used as a shrine.
So that's the same as what they did with Osama bin Laden's body. They buried him at sea, so it cannot be pinpointed as a location for sort of extremists to gather around and use as kind of a focal point. That's why they buried him at sea and not buried him anywhere on land.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. The United States has been searching for Baghdadi for many years. Capturing or killing Baghdadi has been the top national security priority of my administration. U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style.
In total, up to 20 militants were killed on the target or in the immediate vicinity,
Nice.
6 of whom were affiliated to the Islamic State, including the group's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Whilst no US personnel were killed during the raid, 2 operators from Delta Force were lightly wounded, although the causes and extent of their injuries haven't been disclosed. Additionally, Conan, the dog, was the 3rd American casualty, suffering light wounds whilst in the tunnel. Fortunately, he returned back to duty several days later and was even invited to the White House the following month, where he was awarded a plaque and a medal for his efforts during Operation Kayla Mueller.
Oh, that's good. Abul Hassan al-Mahdi here. Okay, so again, operations like that are obviously carried out, and they need to be carried out. There's not really much you can do about that. These people do need to be taken out. Unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately, the way warfare is operated nowadays, with the the emphasis on keeping collateral damage down to a minimum, it means that more and more troops, special forces units like this, have to do sort of on ground, boots on the ground raids to keep those casualties down. It's much higher risk for the soldiers involved, but unfortunately, the way the media is, if a soldier gets killed in a raid like that, it's unfortunate. If civilians get killed in a raid like that, it seems to be the end of the world. Obviously, civilian casualties aren't great, they never are great, but for the guys on the ground, like I said, it increases the risk massively for things that they do. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, if you want to recommend any more videos, head on to the Discord, and just stick them on there, stick them in the video suggestion section, and I'll look at them, and I'll do a video if I quite enjoy it. So guys, thank you very much. Remember, let's try and get to that 500. We are going to do a giveaway once we reach that point. We are almost there, guys. Almost there. And then obviously by the end of the year, I want to get to 1,000. That would be absolutely insane. So guys, thank you very much. And as always, I'll catch you later.